Good Monday morning, and welcome back to another episode of Success by the Book, where each Monday morning we apply timeless truths to life and business in 30 minutes or less. And we do that with our fabulous panel of mentors, coaches, industry titans. First and foremost, we have with us Dale Vermillion, who's back with the whole crew. Dale, it's great to see you.
Good to be back with you guys. Thank you.
We have, of course, Coach Bill Hart, who's the National Leadership Coach over at Move Mortgage. Coach.
Hey, buddy.
And we have Coach Kyle Draper, who's the creator of Rethink Everything and the owner of a whole bunch of other businesses. So follow him for everything that he does. Gentlemen, this morning we are here to talk about work ethic. I'll be honest, with what's happening with the Fed and everything else, maybe people think that they're ready to like lean back in and sort of put their nose to the grind. Maybe they're still weary and cautious. So I'm excited to have this conversation now in this market to talk not just about working harder, but working smarter as well, right? Matt Ashby said recently at the Fuse conference that we're all at together in New Orleans that now is in fact the time to not just work harder and to not just work smarter, but to work harder and smarter. And I think that I agree with that. But, as Christians, we also obviously believe that there's more to life than just business. There's more to life than just money. So how can we encourage loan originators to both work harder and smarter without putting on the sacrificial altar, if you will, the things that really matter in life, family, friendships, relationships, church, community, you name it. So let's zoom out and let's start with the big 30,000 foot question like we always do. One of the quotes that I pulled preparing for today was from Thomas Jefferson. He said, "I'm a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more I have of it." I just love that idea of like, the more you lean in, the more success you tend to find. So in the context of mortgage and the context of sales, I'd love to just ask you guys, like, what does that mean to you of this idea of when you just give yourself more chances to see success will ultimately come? Dan, let's start with you. What does that look like?
Well, I'm going to use a quote that I think really fits well into that from Robert Louis Stevenson when he said, "Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds you sow." And the concept of sowing and reaping is a biblical concept that we should all be living by every day. And I think the importance is that we got to keep reminding ourselves that our job is to come in each day and just continually sow seeds, sow more seeds, sow more seeds. Focus on your actions and activities and the things that you do. And here's my number one thing about this topic today is asking ourselves the question, who are we working for? Who are we working for? Yes, we're working for our families. Yes, we're working for all of those other things, but we work for the Lord first and foremost. And I think that's really the first thing we have to look at. Go back to Colossians 3:23-24. It says, whatever you do, work it with all of your heart. Like, God made work for us and provided us the professions that we have. And it goes on to say, as working for the Lord, not for men, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. We work, yes, to take care of our families, but first and foremost, we work to serve the Lord who's given us the opportunity so that we can make an impact among people that we're in every day. And if we do the little things every day that we ought to be doing, we're going to make a big impact in everything in life.
Love that. Coach, you're obviously a leadership coach. You are working with executives and sales managers all day long. Can you speak to what Dale just talked about of how if we lean in and we focus on the small things, we really can have influence over people in the right way?
Mm-hmm. So, that's an enormous part of the reason that I joined Movement Mortgage 3.5 years ago is we have created a new category in the space called impact lender. So an impact lender is anyone that donates a minimum of 10% of their profits to charitable work. We donate 49%. And so it's a very real cause and effect arrangement at my company where we see tangible evidence of mission trips that we go on and charities that we support locally in our local communities, as well as charter schools that we're opening. So there's a very direct, connection there. But yeah, man, that's the thing that has always been most attractive to me. And I think when you can connect that, it solves the issue that I see a lot in the mortgage industry. And I'm sure you guys have all run into this, where people will describe themselves as being burned out. I'm burned out, coach. If I have to talk to another borrower, okay, so let's have a bigger conversation. Like, why do you do what you do? And here's the truth in the mortgage industry. For many people, it was the money. Where else can you get into an industry, a business, without an advanced degree, without any degree, and make the kind of money that you do? And so, if people are really transparent, if we injected sodium pentothal into a room through the vents, right, and said, "Why'd you get into the mortgage industry?" I got to think a lot of people would honestly say it was for the money. And that's only going to drive you so far, right? To Dale's point. So the great thing about our faith is that if I connect it to something larger, the money's a great byproduct, but that's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to have an impact, as Dale said. That's the right word. I want to have an impact on people. I want to connect my sense of mission with an eternal perspective to what I do each and every day. So yeah, man, it's the thing that keeps me going every day, and I'm blessed enough to be able to have that conversation with people every single day. People that just get a little off track, or they're not quite squared away on that, or they're not even certain about, many people listening to this or watching this right now might be saying, yeah, that all sounds good. You guys have that eternals perspective, but I don't understand that. Man, we'd love to have a conversation with you about that. Connect those dots.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle, obviously you're one of the guys that I look to right now of like, you're taking every opportunity you can get, right? Like you're having to say yes to go to stages, get on planes, you know what I mean? Do live videos where if there only might be 3 people watching, there might be 3,000 people, it's like, you're just a guy who says yes a lot. And you've seen a lot of success through saying yes. Can you speak to how that's sort of worked out in your own life and business? And also to what, Bill's point just made is like, what's driving you to do that? What's driving you to say yes to all these opportunities, even when it might be, a small stage in Cleveland, for example,
Yeah, man. So I think the most important part of this for me is that my wife and I are on the same page. And so what I do not want the lender paying attention to this to take away from this is I just need to go grind more. I need to go harder. And you know what? Like my family will get what's left. I'm doing this for them. And so to me, that is not the answer. And so I remember at the beginning of this year, just sitting down with my wife again and saying, honey, I really believe that the more stages I can get on, the greater opportunities are going to ultimately be provided to our family. Can we do this for another season? Do you support this? Are you on board with it? Because the last thing I needed was to make the decision without her. And then every time I'm going to the airport, she's like, wish you weren't leaving. Sure would be nice to have our husband and dad around. And now I'm like sad going to all these places. And so knowing that she's championing my efforts is the biggest thing for me, because I know I have that support at home. But then, man, beyond that, I think it's the reason that I'm saying yes a lot right now is because I've gotten very intentional about what yes looks like. I know my audience, and so I'm saying yes to those opportunities. I'm not showing up to some random event that has nothing to do with the people that I serve. And then Jake, for me, man, I think we get it on this call, but I would encourage people listening to like engage your why, because it's probably not what it was 2 years ago. And the why you did have may not be moving the needle anymore. And so that's why I love like the phrase impact lender, like Coach Bill talked about, because
So
that
cool.
wakes me up in the morning, right? Is knowing that today I get to make an impact. I had a LinkedIn DM yesterday that from a guy that said, I've been in this industry for 30 years. I'm super burnout, but I just read your purple book and I've never been more excited to lean back in.
Awesome.
Like, that's why we do what we do, because we want to have that impact. And then we know that through that impact, all the dollars are going to follow. And so that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. So can we talk about like, how does a loan officer show up right now? What are the things that they need to work on and to be working hard in this market? And how do they drive that impact like Kyle just spoke about?
Well, everything that you are doing when you show up in this industry is geared towards helping consumers to improve their life financially, which has a massive impact on their family's well-being, ultimately community at large, because the more you strengthen the family, the more you strengthen community, the more you help people in all areas of life. So what you've got to focus on is, what are the key activities that I should be really doing every day that are going to move the needle on helping more customers? And that's the mistake that most loan officers make, is we get up and work on things like responding to emails and digging in our pipelines and things that have very little impact or create very little momentum in changing the lives of others. What we've got to do is constantly focus on the bigger picture of getting as actively involved in my database and in my partner base as I possibly can, getting out there and being in the community more, making sure that we are dedicating time each and every morning, time blocking out sales first before anything else that we do. Sales meaning talking to consumers and talking to partners and prospecting to expand your resources so that you can touch more people. It's just that simple. If we can focus on those actions and activities, and everybody says, well, I don't know what to say. Well, saying something is better than saying nothing. That's what I always remind them of. I'd rather you get on and try and do it wrong and just keep trying because it'll get better, than do nothing at all and sit there perplexed about, the economy and everything that's happening around here. And that's an awful lot of what I see today. So it's really just making a strategic decision that I'm going to walk before I run. I'm going to take it one step at a time. And the key is connecting with people that can help to move the needle on creating more reach within the marketplace.
Well,
so Dale, I got to hop into that. No, go ahead.
No, CB, you go, and then I'll go.
Come on, Coach.
I'm younger, so I'll probably remember what I'm going to say.
Put a mental, I'll
need to go.
If not, I got a question for Kyle. So
I'll be talking about classic cars in 5 minutes. As a matter of fact, I could have that conversation right now. No, Dale, I was going to say, I just had a call last week, coaching session with a guy last week, who's a very spiritual guy, always been involved in his church. He's burned out right now. And he had done phenomenal volume, 2-3 years ago, as so many people had. And he's like, man, I got to get geared back up for it. And so we had that conversation that you just described. As a matter of fact, if he's listening or watching right now, he knows I'm talking about him. But I said, okay, so what is when you look at your calendar tomorrow morning, you walk into work, when you look at your calendar, what faces you in that day? And he says, well, I've got annual mortgage review calls. I got follow-up calls with realtors around open houses. Okay. So, and what's your intent? He said, well, that's the problem. Like, I don't really want to do it. And I said, okay, so what if, just hypothetically, what if you approached each one of those calls as saying, okay, these are divine appointments. He's a strong man of faith, right? If everybody that's on your calendar was a divine appointment, and you led with, to your point, Dale, you led with a conversation or a question that then opened the can opener for them to say, as an example, if you just said something like, well, I'm sure you, like everybody else, have seen what's been going on with the Fed and interest rates and everything. Like, where's your head with all of that? Find out where they are. Don't make assumptions. And they're probably going to say, like most of America that's not in our business, well, I saw rates dropped 0.5 point. I'm assuming I can now save a 0.5 point. Well, actually, as it turns out, those cuts were already baked in, right? But the Fed is talking about more cuts through the course of the year. But the important question is, where are you guys right now? Well, I mean, now that you ask, it's funny you should bring that up. We actually just dropped our son off to college. We were thinking maybe about downsizing, but I got a 3 7/8 rate right now. I don't know if it's time to do that. The point is, you're getting into people's lives, and so. Yeah. The subtle shift in that coaching session for him was, I'm just going to connect with people from my heart. They know what I do. They know I'm in the mortgage industry. But if they've got a sick dog, or they just came back from Turks and Caicos, or, there's something going on in their life that's interesting, like, I want to know about that. I want to connect with people. So that would be my strong encouragement to people right now. If this call is one that's having a connection point with your head and your heart, I hope that's it. As Dale said, while it is sales, and man, I'll argue, sales makes the world go round with the best of them, but you don't have to be overly scripted and intentional. If you just go in with an open mind and an open heart and ask people how they're doing. How are you doing? What's going on in your lives? How can I be of value to you? Who do I know that I can refer you to that would bring some value to you? What's going on?
Good.
I love that. Yeah, CB, that it's so true. And I just want to quickly bring the social media angle into this from a negative perspective, because when you two guys got into the industry, the internet wasn't around. Like, it wasn't being leveraged in our industry at all.
Fax
And
machines were being introduced. Are you kidding me?
It's
With thermal paper.
If y'all weren't calling people, you didn't know what was going on in somebody's life. You had no idea. Well, now we have social media. I think it's being abused in our industry. So many mortgage people are just, they're going, well, I posted on social media today. Isn't that basically, Dell, the same thing? Like, and I think now we assume, well, everybody knows what I do because I'm on social media. They're on social media. And I know for me personally, I've waited around for people to invite me to speak from the premise of, man, people know that I'm a speaker. I put out videos of me speaking. And so if somebody wants me, they're going to reach out. When the reality is, everybody's timeline is so consumed on social, and everybody's lives are so busy, and we're being fought after for our attention by everything, that if I'm not reaching out to people and going, hey, I want to put my name in the hat, I'd love the opportunity to serve your people, I may never get those opportunities. And so I think we've got to be careful that we don't go, well, but isn't making all those calls old school? Because social media. And I just think, like, we still need to be talking to people every single day, not letting a post convince us that, well, Facebook said it reached 900 people. I couldn't have made 900 phone calls. And
Sure.
That's not comparing apples to apples. And so we've got to be super careful.
Yeah, that's like saying relationship is old school, so we shouldn't have any anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it's really what.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. And I'll add to what Bill said. I use this quote a lot when I train. If you're burnt out, then here's the key: stop selling and start serving and solving.
Perfect.
That's it.
Man.
Start serving and solving, and your burnout's gonna go away.
For sure. Hey, Jake, I know you've got a transition question, but I want to come back to something that Kyle
Please.
said when he talked about his family and the dichotomy and the push-pull between opportunity and family. Every loan officer, every sales leader that's on this call right now or is listening to this later can relate to that. And this weekend, I posted in LinkedIn, on LinkedIn, an article entitled, very short, called Plan Your Life, Then Plan Your Work. And it was based on an interview that I did with Gary Keller in 2004 when he was releasing and promoting The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And he said, Coach, here's what I do. I teach all my agents. Now, remember, this is 2004 with Keller Williams. He said, I have them all buy an annual calendar. And I say, I want you to take that annual calendar, put in our convention, which they call the family reunion. I want you to put in, Christmas and birthdays and date nights and family vacations and all of those things that are going to happen during the course of your year. And he said, then I want you to stand back and look at it and realize now all you have left to do is work. What a phenomenal concept. That's like saying, hey, instead of, paying all your bills and then trying to save some money, why don't you save some money off the top? And by the way, just so you know what that looks like, in my office, this camera has a mind of its own. That's what it looks like right there on the back of my door. And so that's a $20 investment that you can make through Amazon to just throw that up on the wall, but get all that stuff that matters to you, kids' games, whatever it is. Kyle, you and your bride might, conclude that I'm going to speak 24 times this year, but not 25. Like they're going to be up there, and these weekends matter to me, and these 3-day weekends matter to me. And you know what, guys, the beauty of that is it creates a focus. I remember Todd Duncan saying years ago at the Marriott Desert Springs, you've all been in that hotel, big ballroom, all these fluorescent lights. He said, if we took the energy in those fluorescent lights and brought it down to the size of a pin, you could cut through steel with it because of the focus, the power of focus. If you'll do that with your schedule, you'll find yourself being more efficient, more deliberate because you've been very specific about the time that you're going to work because you've already committed to all this other stuff that matters to you.
It's good.
That's so good. And it
Get
leads
an
me right
annual
down the
calendar, man.
yeah, absolutely. And it leads me right down the road that I wanted to ask, which is, Dad, I wanted to pivot to you and say, okay, I think we can all agree that a loan officer, a sales manager can probably get everything they need to get done in a typical day. Granted, there are those days that aren't, in 10 hours or less. Some, possibly 8, right? Fair?
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. So, but that, to Bill's point, requires focus and it requires strategy. So let's start with sort of the sales strategy and the time management principles that you teach all the time. And then I want to pivot to Kyle, because I know Kyle and Shane, your guys' team over at the Collective recently did a webinar on automation, and there's almost limitless potential, especially with AI now, to make loan officers more efficient, be able to do more in less time. So, but Dad, let's start with the strategy. People need to be in front of people in order to create opportunities. They need to be talking to people. How do they do that? When do they do that? And like, what's the archetypal day of a top originating loan officer right now in this market?
Well, and you started with the right thing, Jay, because we first have to identify, all right, what is my timelines that I want to work this week? If I want to work 50 hours a week and cap that out, which every one of you should be able to, and do a whole lot of business. You don't any more than that, you're just wasting time. I guarantee it. So we start with that structure and say, okay, if that's what I've got, let's start looking at that and saying, okay, what are the priorities within that? The thing that I teach all the time is having a priority mindset. So you have to take each day and you have to sit down and ask yourself the question, all right, what are the things I know that I need to get done today? List those out. Put those then in priority from most important down to least important. Once you've established that, start to put time frames to them. So you're starting to eat away at those 10 hours you've got so that you know what you've got left out of that. And make sure you pack into your day what I call flex time for the things you're going to come up that you don't know are going to come up, but they're going to come up because they always do, and you're going to have to address them. That's typically 2 to 3 hours each day. So if I want to work 10, I need an hour for lunch and breaks. I've got 9 hours left, and I've got 3 hours of flex. I've got 6 hours to work with. Prioritize that 6 hours, break it down into time limitations, and put it in your calendar and live by it. It's just that simple. And take those 3 hours of flex and just flex it in between your appointments so you can respond to voicemails, you can respond to emails, you can take care of the things you got to take care of, and you basically balance everything is what you do. And to the point that was made earlier, which is so important, Bill was dead on. Put your personal things in first. You remember, Jake, how much I traveled when you were young? I was speaking 150 to 170 days a year. And yet I was at all your games that I could, be at. I coached you guys in sports. We did family vacations and all those things because I sat down with your mom first and said, what's our family calendar for this month? Before I start to build my work calendar, I always started with that first. There's finite hours in a day. You got to use them the right way.
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And can we just quickly double tap on when you've got those, especially like your sales hours, right? First thing in the morning, you talked about prioritizing your day, but you also want to prioritize your opportunities. Can you talk about how a loan officer, but so how does a loan officer actually balance contacting their database, reaching out to referral partners, actually touching base with customers, following up with customers who are in process? Like, how do you prescribe that? And can you just quickly touch on like your concept of buckets? Because I think this is really important, especially on the database side.
Yeah, so you got to pre-plan these things out. And here's the most important tip on this. Small increments daily are better than big increments once in a while. That's the mistake we do, is we don't call our database for 3 weeks, and then we say we're going to call them for 3 hours, and we're burnt out after 22 minutes. What you've got to do is every single day say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes calling my database. I'm going to spend 20 minutes prospecting. I'm going to spend another 20 minutes calling my pipeline. Just going through and separating out those activities into small increments of not more than 30 to 45 minutes. And then just put them in and go, and always start with your sales activities first. Always start while your attitude's powerful, while your momentum is good, while your motivation is high. And then take the dead times of the day. That's typically 1 to 2 o'clock is your slowest time of the day when consumers can't get a hold of. Do your pipeline things and those kind of administrative functions in the slow times of the day. If you organize your day properly that way, you're going to win every time.
So good. So good. So Kyle, you guys obviously did a webinar recently on automation, and a lot of that was content-based for sure. And we can speak to that, but what have you seen in terms of top originators who are working with you guys in the collective or elsewhere of how they're leveraging technology, automation, AI to be able to do more in less time?
Jake, I think it's first, it's just asking the question, what parts of my job do I do every single time?
Yeah. Repeat, like repetitively. Because you talk about this
Right.
with video, even in the process, right? It's like, because you say, right, like, what are the same 50 questions you get with every transaction? Record a video answer to all of them, and then just plan them out that they're going to go out, throughout the process.
Yeah, and so I don't think we spend enough time like just thinking about what do I do over and over and over again. That can be automated. Obviously, there's going to be something that's like, well, I'm going to automate those calls that Dale's talking about. So like there's some things that you can't automate, but
Right.
there are parts to the process that I guarantee you most LOs are cussing themselves every time they're in it. It's their least favorite hour of the day.
Yeah.
And most of that activity could probably be automated. Yeah. And so I would also just tell people like Zapier, which is Zapier. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but
yeah,
if you go in there, create a free account and just go look at available automations, my brain goes crazy when I'm like, I didn't know that like I could make that talk to that and then this could happen. And so we don't know what we don't know. And, it's huge. It's such a huge opportunity that I think most people aren't paying much attention to. Yeah. And we can also look at automation too, I think through the lens of using a virtual assistant. That is a manual automation, right? That I can farm out and have other people working on my behalf in the background, which I do a ton of in my businesses. And man, it's not being leveraged enough.
Totally agree. Kyle, we get Coach, we got time for one last question, Kyle. I appreciate that. And if anyone needs some advice on the automation side, get with the collective. If you want advice on the VA side, he's got a solution for that as well. So just reach out to Kyle on that. Coach, I think the last piece that we need to cover in this conversation around work ethic is if you're a leader and you're listening to this, what can you do to be cultivating a better work ethic in your people on a regular basis? I'm sure you talk about this with your clients all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same conversation we've just been having. It's just one step above, right? Because now it watersheds down. Best thing I think you can do as a leader is to demonstrate what it is that you're holding people accountable to. Amen. So, I think it was John Maxwell, that originally said, how does the line go? Self-leadership precedes team leadership. So if I show up, if I wake up early, if I am using some kind of planner, you guys know I'm a big fan of the Win by Noon planner, and I am structuring my day like that, it's so much easier now to hold people accountable to do something similar because I'm doing it. But if I'm asking them to do something that I'm clearly not, that's just not going to work well. So I could do a day on this, but that's my simplest answer is self-leadership precedes team leadership. Hold yourself to the same standard you're holding your subordinates to.
So good. Love that. My first boss out of college, I remember he expected me to be in the office between 5:30 and 6 a.m. and leave sometime after 7 p.m. And he was usually there from 8 to 5. So,
funny how that works. Yeah.
Funny how
that's
that works.
That's a former
right?
boss.
Former boss. Yeah. Keyword there. That's right. Yeah.
No
longer at that organization. Yeah. It does make a difference. When people see you putting in the time, not just working hard, but working smart. Absolutely. That's going to trickle down. Well, gentlemen, any last comments, questions, verses you want me to pull before we sign up for today and we see everyone next week?
Proverbs 21:5 says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. We've got to be diligent. Vince Lombardi's quote I always love, where he says, the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary. We just got to remember that.
So good.
It's so good. Well, thank you as always so much for tuning in. We did have a couple of comments I just want to highlight. Stacey Lynn, once again, she's here every single week. She says, what things light you up? So it makes you productive, but feels productive. Like, get on this call. So she's saying, everyone get on with Success by the Book every week.
Nice, Stacey.
So thanks, you, Stacey. Thank you, everyone else, for commenting as well and for being with us. We will see you all next week, Monday, 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And we're going to be talking about encouragement. So we'll see you then there. God bless and have a great week.
God bless everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks, Jake.